Welcome to my show, starring me, Jeremy. I was a star in a recent professional production of that masterpiece of masterpieces, Romeo and Juliet. Well, not exactly the star, but aren't we all the stars of our own shows? I played a very juicy role, well, multiple roles, in fact. The Pittsfield community players knew my endless talents could not be contained to a single character. I played the apothecary. Without what, let us face it, that hapless Romeo would not have been able to procure the poison which he imbibes and which leads to his untimely death and subsequently Oh no! Have I ruined the play for you? I joke. I like jokes. I may tell you one or a few, but I always will preface it with the phrase, "Can I tell you a joke?" Because no one likes not knowing if it's a joke or not. I should know. Well, anyway, I played the apothecary in City Guard number 3, without which fair Verona never would have discovered the corpses of the lovers, and everyone would have just wondered where those two went off to, or probably eventually they would have found them after the bodies decomposed long enough to smell and attract wild animals. I don't pretend to have performed as well as the famous rendition of Romeo and Juliet by Zeffirelli in 1960. Zeffirelli's rendition will, of course, never be surpassed, but it is closely followed by McClintock and Gielgud. You see, I am a dedicated student of the theatre. It was my major in the university, though I never seemed to quite land many roles whilst attending. These days I try out for many plays and musicals. Yes, I have a beautiful voice, but the casting directors don't always seem to think I'm right for the part. I work at Big Foods, supermarket, currently is my day job, and what of it? Matthew Damon worked demolition, Bukowski was a mailman. I have quite a bit of fun thinking about my work associates, reading the Sunday New York Times, coming across my name in the starring role for the new musical, Jeremy's Life. How astounded they will be. Oh, how they will chuckle and whisper. I used to know that chap. I used to give him a hard time. Quite a hard time. I wish I hadn't done that. Can I tell you a joke? Well, more of a funny story. The cast of our rendition of Romeo and Juliet is simply phenomenal, and we all get along swell. One night, when I was walking the few miles back to my home, my fellow cast member, Anthony, he picked me up, and we had a lovely chat. He yielded the spotlight to myself while I prattled on about my grand ambitions, my trials and tribulations, the amusing indignities a 47-year-old thespian must endure while living with one's parents, and we did have a slight difficulty in the end. He asked me where on Oak Avenue I lived, and I said it was the 37th house on the right, which it is. He asked me after some time had passed if we had come to it, and I asked if he was dumb because we had clearly only passed 23 houses on the right. It was quite silly. Finally, I had to just point out the exact house before the boy whisked us past it altogether. Oh, it was a hoot. Curious, though, I asked Anthony for a ride the very next night, and he agreed, but disappeared right after the show. But fresh air, it's good for you. Cold, pure mid-February, fresh night air. I had a few other misunderstandings with my fellow cast members. When waiting backstage for my apothecary debut, I often would clear out my airways. It is necessary to ensure I can properly project. Those around me say it sounds as if I am belching uncontrollably. What can I say? It's an integral part of my craft. And one night, when two less inspired actors of our troupe tried to cut the play to pieces, tried to say it was buffoonery, that Romeo's plan never made any sense at all, I stopped them. How dare you? How dare you spit on the bard's name, I said. How would you know? I said. How would you know what silly things you would do for someone, for the one you loved as much as Romeo loved Juliet. How would you know what someone will do for love? How would you know? How would you know? How would you know? They didn't seem much interested in discussing it further after that. Well, I'm off to another audition. You've been a beautiful audience, truly. And whenever you find yourself in a spot of trouble whilst pursuing your own dreams, and they seem so very far out of reach, when you want to shoot for the stars but you can't even seem to find the sky, and you wish sometimes you really were an apothecary so you could just procure something that would take care of it all. Whenever you find yourself in that position, just think of me and remember, the show must go on! Curtains. Thunderous applause.